Music producers, this is how you make a lo-fi remix. Alright guys, Tom Fuble back at you with another music production tutorial. Today we're going to do a lo-fi remix and we're going to do it to the hit song Mad at Disney. So before we get started, I thought I'd do a little brief explanation on what lo-fi music stands for. So it stands for low fidelity and it originates from imperfections in audio recordings. Now these are primarily replaced by the vinyl crackle that you hear in basically every single lo-fi song, which is acting as the Foley. Now the second type of aesthetic that you get from lo-fi is just your environmental sound. So it could be like a chair creaking, it could be like those birds chirping outside, it could just be someone coughing or turning a page while they're trying to sing a song lyric, and that all adds up to the general lo-fi aesthetic. Now let's get right into it. Alright, so step one, let's get that vinyl crackle going and set the lo-fi mood. So the first thing we want to do is add some vinyl crackle. So this is what I've got. Just a sample from Splice, just a simple vinyl crackle on loop, and this is what it sounds like. Okay, so step two now, it's time to program the drums. So I've got a nice kick and snare sample, and now I'm going to go and show you guys how I came up with the lo-fi beat pattern. So I've got a kick here, it's a nice punchy lo-fi kick, and I've got a snare here with a bit of reverb, about 3.97 seconds. It's got a nice little tail to it, and I've also got a little bit of a imager going on here, and it's just giving it a bit of stereo width, so it's not as mono, it has some more space. You can see there, that's what it looks like. The basic drum pattern is pretty simple. It is a kick on every downbeat and a snare on every 3 beat. I'll play you the simple beat without all these extra kicks, and then I'll explain why I've added those. So this is what it sounds like. So it's pretty boring, and we need a bit more of that lo-fi groove. So I've added a kick here, here, and here, and it just gives it a bit more of that lo-fi feeling, a bit of those off-time drums almost. Just change up the beat, make it a bit more interesting, and this is what primarily my beat will sound like for this track. Okay, so now step number 3, it's time to lay down the chords of the song. You can actually change the chord progression if you like, and then once you've got the chords for the piano, you can actually put that on different instruments like a pad. Okay, so let's talk about the piano chords that I've set out for this lo-fi remix, and I feel this is a central driving force for the rhythm along with the drums that has that lo-fi feel. So these piano rhythms, I guess, that I've made are pretty offbeat, and I play this by hand because I'm a piano player, but you can have a look at the structure if you want to see how I've actually done these chords. So I did change the chords up a bit. If you want to figure out chords to a song, you can try and do it by ear, or you can just simply Google it, and I find this is the easiest way. So these are like the original chords. So we've got a C, a G, an A minor, and a D minor. Now I've changed it up a little bit, and I've also changed up the pattern. So what I've got here is a D minor. We start on a D minor, then we go into a G. So G, B, D, that's a G. We go into a C, and then we go into an A chord. So I've just changed the structure a little bit, and it works very well with the vocals because I've already tested that out, but definitely test it out. You'll have to experiment a bit to make sure that if you're going to do a remix, you change the chords and it clashes with the harmonics of the vocals, then you need to rethink what chord progression you're using. This is what I played on my piano. So that's what the piano sounds like. Now, just one thing to note when you're programming pianos, have a look at some of the timing. So the timing is quantized, but it's not completely great. So you can see some of these are a bit off, some of these are a bit forward. Generally, if you're going to program these, you probably you want a lot of the stuff on the downbeat to hit on time and not be too far off. Otherwise, they'll just really change the rhythm of the song. So just be aware of that, but definitely don't have them all on grid, otherwise it just starts sounding too mechanical. And for a genre like lo-fi, being a bit off time is great. Once you've set out the chord progression, you can literally copy this, but you probably get it in this format. Oops, let's zoom that. You want it in this format, so just click whatever you've got here, the information that I played on the piano, you want to click legato, and it's just going to push everything, obviously select everything, it'll push everything into this format, and then you can start copying and pasting this into different instruments. So one of the instruments that I've done, I've already frozen it so you can't see the MIDI information, is a pad. So we've got a pad that accompanies the piano now, and this is what it sounds like. So it's a pretty hopeful sounding pad. I quite like the sound, and I think it works well sonically with all the other instruments that I put into the track. Okay, step number 4. I'm really trying to... 4? 3? 4? What am I doing? Alright guys, step number 4 is time to put that classic ARP that I just love to put in everything. But I feel like it really helps with this lo-fi aesthetic. Like I said, once you've got the chords, you can start putting different instruments in. And I feel like because this song's about Disney, we want that little Disney twinkle, that shooting star sound. So I've got this nice ARP that's almost like a twinkle in the background. So let's check out what I did with that one. Alright, so this is the favorite part of my production. And this is like one of my signature sounds that I do. I always like to put ARPs in everything. I just absolutely love ARPs. So this is what it sounds like, and I'll explain what I've done. So it just does that on repeat. It's a pretty nice sounding, it's quite realistic sounding as well. Like it's almost like a xylophone, and it's just like a little Disney bunny rabbit running around, like from Alice in Wonderland or something. It just really gives me that vibe of like that twinkle and stardust. And for a song like Mad at Disney, where they've already got such a theme about the shooting stars and all that kind of stuff, I feel like this just gives it that little magical touch. Alright, step number 5, it's time to do the bass line. So I've kept the bass notes pretty similar to the root notes of the chords. There's a couple of passing notes, so let's jump in and see what I did there. So I've kept the bass line pretty simple. It's all the root notes of the chords that it starts out with, and I've just put in little passing notes every now and then. So I've turned on all the EQ, so it might sound a bit fuzzy. You'll need headphones to hear the bass. It's a sub bass, and so I've kept the bass line pretty simple. It's all the root notes of the chords that it starts out with, and I've just put in little passing notes every now and then. So I've turned on all the EQ, so it might sound a bit fuzzy. You'll need headphones to hear the bass. It's a sub bass, and we've got D, 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 goes to an F, goes to a G, 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 A, that's a passing note. And I just had a bit of fun with these little transitional patterns here as I go to a new note. So I've just used a stock sub 2 sine bass, haven't really done much to it, and I've just done an EQ and cut down all the highs. So we're just getting the lows because that's all I want. And I've just got a really strong side chain onto the kick, so this bass frequency doesn't interfere with the kick. So if I play this bass with everything else, we can have a quick listen to see what it all sounds like. Okay, step 6, we're pretty much done with the beat, so now we're just going to add some lo-fi textures, some Foley and transitions. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is we had a hi-hat. This could technically go on drums, but it's here, so I'm just going to talk about it now. And we've got this nice little hi-hat pattern, and it's just a trap little loop, and it's a little bit off time, and I've just put it in, but it just works very well. And I've got a pan to around the head. I've done a little mid-side EQing to it, so it pops out a little bit more on the sides here at this particular frequency around the 8K mark, and you can have a listen. So I really like the off-time nature of that little hi-hat. Like you can see it's doing and it goes a little bit off time and then it comes back onto the beat. That's the perception I get from this loop. So when choosing loops for hi-hats, I don't really like to program like 2 robotic hi-hats because it's just going to give this song a less lo-fi and more of an EDM genre. So to get that lo-fi swing, I like to just get a bit more looser hi-hats and just chuck them in there. Some other things I've done here. I love the twinkle theme in Disney, so I've put in this little twinkle rod, whatever it's called, and it just comes in every now and then. It just gives it that little extra ear candy. before I move on transition, actually, you can do a lot more textures. Like you can do like page turns, you can do like chalk writing. These are some things that I really like to do. Like I like to use like one of my favorite lo-fi sounds is like a little bicycle, like a bling. And in hindsight, probably could have used a bicycle bling instead of that, and change it up because I've just used the same sound. Now, if we move on to some transitions, what I've got here is a nice little riser, and I've just done it in specific places in the song just to help transition from, like, say, a verse into like a vocal chop area. That's a pretty simple riser as they come. And what I did was I got a little bit creative, and I did a little reverse on this pad that we played earlier just to accompany it, so gives it a bit more of a unique texture, because that one's pretty simple by itself. So now we've got this. So that sounded pretty cool. And what I've actually done there is to get that effect, because you can see here the waveform's just basically loud the whole time through. I actually had to automate the volume of it. So I've automated every single time that happens with the utility and the gains. You can see it goes from basically unhearable to 0 dB. So it just gets a little bit louder. It just helps, like, so it serves the same purpose as a reverse piano. And sometimes, you know, if you just reverse something, it might not sound the way you sound. You can do this little trick to it and get it to sound like a little bit of a riser. Okay guys, step 7. So we're pretty much done with the whole beat now. So it's time to get the acapella in there. We're going to do some vocal chops. We're going to rearrange a couple of things, and we're really going to get this remix popping. So now it's time for the fun part. We're going to actually use the vocal chops from the acapella of the song Mad at Disney and make it into a little bit of a lo-fi remix. So I'm going to work my magic on these vocal chops. I've actually left like sections in the full song with like the verses, but I'm just going to focus on this section because this section is, like, for me, the best example of how you can do some kind of vocal chop manipulation to get some sounds that you want in the mix. So let's see. Let's have a quick listen. We'll see what I've done here.
But now I'm mad at Disney. I'm mad at Disney. I'm mad at Disney. Fix me head. I'm mad at Disney. Fix me. I'm mad at Disney.
Awesome. So this is where I've started. So let's run through it. So there's not too much that's been changed here. When you want to use vocal chops and abuse them or fix them or whatever you want to do with them, generally you want to put them into Complex or Complex Pro. So this is already in Complex Pro, and this section here I've just pitched up. You can see I've pitched up 4 semitones because I just didn't have a take that actually sung that high. Oh, so this part was quite cool. So this part, you had to change a little bit of the drum pattern just so you could get this little Disney glitch going. So I really like this Disney. I just thought that was a pretty cool, like, lo-fi skip kind of thing. Disney. So to get that going well in the production, I actually cut out a lot of stuff. So you can see, like, I've cut out and deactivated a lot of this stuff except for the pad, and then the drums have also been deactivated. So you get a section with no drums, and on the Disney, the 2 kicks come in, and that's what's giving it a nice effect there. It just gives more emphasis to that Disney. So a lot of times in production, especially in lo-fi, like, because it's so simple, you want to just emphasize particular parts. Yeah, so this part. So I've done that cut again, but this time I've also done some automation on the filter. Now, one of the most popular techniques that I've heard from, like, lo-fi artists like Potsu is they've got like this high cut that just automates down, which is this part here. So you can actually see if we go into the auto filter. So I've cut it down here, and it'll cut down and then it'll come back with the full range of the vocal, and it just gives it that, like, really, like, washed out, like, just smoked a joint or, like, just totally confused kind of feeling, which is quite cool. And this is what it will sound like. I'm mad at Disney. Fix me. So you get a nice contrast of just taking something away and then giving it back. And I thought that was a great place to put it there because all the other instruments are cut. So a lot of the focus is going to go onto that low, like mushed out vocal. And then once the real vocal hits, you get that extra emphasis again. So because lo-fi music is all just like loops, like this whole song is looped about 3 minutes, it's really important that you actually like muck around with just the small details, like changing the first time I've done that to the second time I've done that with the high cut filter makes all the difference to the listeners because it gives them just something that's almost the same but slightly unique and different, and it keeps them engaged in the song. So one more thing I wanted to show you guys is this little vocal chop here, which I quite like. It's like one of my favorite parts that I've like edited out from the song. And don't be afraid to reverse stuff. Don't be afraid to just experiment. This one is pitched up 3 semitones. This one here is just left normal. These two are reversed, and that's like done an octave lower, and then it goes back into just a normal octave. And this is what this little bit sounds like. And I almost wanted this to like kind of delay, so I've got like a little bit of delay on it. It's very slight. I could have done a way bigger delay on it, so if you have listened to this last part, it's got the and if you really want to exaggerate that, you can just go nuts if you want. So it just really depends what you like, but instead I've just opted to actually do a manual kind of a delay effect here. So basically it's the same part as this, put a bit later and just softer, so when you hear it like this, it's kind of like in the mix. I just quite like that little, like, it's basically like a long echo effect, but to get more control, this is how you do it. You can probably try and do it with an echo plugin, but you know, this just seemed easier for me to do it like this. Hey Tommy, I know that you're mad at Disney and everything, but like, don't you think you just find true love one day?
I love lo-fi.
Oh no, like I meant like a girl. Don't worry, never mind. So I hope you guys enjoyed my tutorial on how to do a lo-fi remix of the song Mad at Disney. If you did, give it a like, subscribe to my channel so I can keep making tutorials for you guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you guys need any remixes, hit me up. I'll be happy to help you guys out there. Peace.